Okay, so get this. We're talking about a company today that makes enough baby clothes to probably dress every single baby born in the world. Twice.
Wow.
Kitex Garments Ltd. They're the world's second largest manufacturer of infant and children's cotton garments.
That's a whole lot of onesies.
That is a whole lot of onesies. And today, we're going to take a deep dive into their world.
Right.
We're going to be exploring their recent performance and future plans based on their annual report for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2024.
Sounds fascinating, especially considering the current global economic climate.
Yeah, right. Because it's
Yeah.
not exactly smooth sailing out there. Yeah. So before we get into like the nitty-gritty of Kitex's numbers, let's kind of like set the scene. What's the global economic outlook? What does it mean for a company like Kitex, which relies heavily on exports?
Well, the IMF is predicting moderate global growth. But the picture isn't exactly uniform. We're seeing some regions struggling while others are showing resilience. For example, China, a major player in the textile industry, is experiencing a slowdown.
Which is interesting because, like, for a long time, China was the go-to for manufacturing, especially in the garment industry.
Exactly. But things are shifting.
Okay.
And this is where India comes into play.
Because India is doing pretty well,
Yeah.
economically speaking.
Exceptionally well, in fact. They've defied expectations with a GDP growth rate of 8.2%.
Wow, 8.2%. What's driving this growth?
Well, there are several factors at play. Increased investments, particularly in government infrastructure projects, are a major contributor. We're also seeing a resurgence in consumer demand, both in urban and rural areas.
A good sign.
It's a very positive sign.
So India's economy is a bit of a bright spot in a somewhat uncertain global landscape.
Precisely. And this is where Kitex Garments Ltd comes in. They're very deeply intertwined with India's economic story.
Okay, well, let's talk about that story. So the Indian textile industry is huge.
Right. Massive is an understatement. It's the second largest employer in the country, providing jobs for 45 million people directly and an astounding 100 million indirectly.
Wow, those are some mind-boggling numbers.
Yeah.
And it's not just about baby clothes.
Right. Absolutely not. While ready-made garments, like the ones Kitex specializes in, are a major export, the industry is incredibly diverse. You've got cotton production, man-made textiles, and a growing technical textile sector. It's a very complex ecosystem with its own set of challenges and opportunities.
Okay, let's talk challenges. What are some of the biggest hurdles facing the Indian textile industry right now?
I'd say one of the most significant challenges is staying competitive on a global scale,
Yeah.
especially with rising production costs.
Oh, yeah.
Labor costs are increasing. Raw material prices can fluctuate. Energy expenses are also a factor.
So how do they stay in the game when faced with these rising costs?
Innovation is key. Companies are investing in new technologies, automating processes, finding ways to improve efficiency, and the Indian government is also stepping in to support the industry.
Okay, how so? Tell me more.
Well, they've launched several initiatives aimed at boosting the textile sector. One example is the Production-Linked Incentive, or PLI, scheme.
Okay. Break that down for me. What is the PLI scheme? How does it benefit companies like Kitex?
Essentially, it's a financial incentive program designed to encourage domestic manufacturing and increase exports. Companies that meet certain production and export targets can receive financial rewards. It's a pretty big deal for the industry.
So it's like a boost to help Indian companies compete on a world stage.
Exactly. And then there's the National Technical Textiles Mission, which is focused on promoting innovation and growth in the technical textile sector.
Okay.
This is a newer area with huge potential for growth.
Technical textiles. What exactly are we talking about here?
So think specialized textiles used in industries like agriculture, healthcare, and construction.
Yeah.
They often have unique properties, like being fire-resistant or waterproof, making them suitable for specific applications.
Oh, interesting. So India is looking to kind of carve out a niche in this growing market.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this could create new opportunities for companies like Kitex, especially if they decide to diversify their product portfolio beyond traditional garments.
Okay, so we've got this picture of India's textile industry.
Yeah.
It's massive, it's diverse, it's facing challenges, but also embracing new opportunities. Now let's zoom in on Kitex Garments Ltd, our baby clothes giant.
Yes.
Remind us again, what makes them stand out in this crowded market?
Well, their size is definitely a major factor. Remember, they're the second largest manufacturer of infant and children's wear globally, and they've achieved this through a combination of strategic decisions and operational excellence.
So what are some of those key strategies that have propelled them to this position?
One of their core strategies is their yarn-to-garments model.
Yarn to garments. That sounds pretty self-explanatory, but explain it for those of us who haven't encountered the term before.
Sure. Essentially, they control the entire production process, from sourcing raw materials like cotton to manufacturing the finished garments.
So they're not just stitching clothes together. They're involved in every step of the process.
That's right.
What's the advantage of that?
It gives them unparalleled control over quality and cost. They can ensure consistent quality at each stage of production and optimize costs by managing the entire supply chain.
It's like a vertically integrated empire of baby clothes.
You could say that.
And it's a model that's proven very successful for them. They're not just making, generic baby clothes. They're manufacturing for some of the biggest brands in the world.
That's right.
Okay, name drop some of these big-name clients.
We're talking giants like Walmart, Carter's, and Gerber children's wear brands you see in stores everywhere.
Wow. So if you've bought baby clothes, chances are you've held a Kitex-made garment in your hands.
It's highly likely. Yes, and this export-focused strategy has been a major driver of their growth. About 78% of their revenue comes from exports, while the remaining 22% is from domestic sales within India.
Okay, so they've got global reach, a unique business model, and a strong client base. But even giants feel the pinch in a tough economic climate. How did they fare financially in the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2024?
That's where things get really interesting. They did face some headwinds, particularly in the first half of the year, as the global recession impacted demand.
So the first 6 months weren't exactly rosy.
Not quite. Their turnover in the first half was H297 crores, with an average profit before tax, or PBT, of 10%.
Oh.
Now, for those unfamiliar with crores,
Yes.
that's a unit of currency used in India equivalent to 10 million rupees.
Thanks for clarifying that. So 10% profit isn't terrible, but it's not stellar either.
Right.
What happened in the second half of the year?
That's where we have our plot twist. They staged a remarkable comeback in the second half, generating H354 crores in turnover with a 20% profit before tax.
Wow, that's a significant jump. How did they manage to turn things around so dramatically?
That is the million-dollar question. While the annual report doesn't delve into the specifics of this turnaround, it does highlight several factors that likely contributed to their success.
Okay, let's dig into those factors. What were some of the key drivers behind this impressive second half performance?
Well, one key driver was their strategic expansion plan. They've been investing heavily in new production facilities to increase capacity and meet growing demand.
So they're thinking big,
Yeah,
playing the long game.
absolutely. And one of their most significant projects is nearing completion in Warangal, India.
The Warangal project. I was wondering when we get to that. It's a massive undertaking.
Right. It is indeed. They've already invested H918 crores in this state-of-the-art facility, which is expected to start production in December 2024.
So they're betting big on the future, even in the face of economic uncertainty. What's the thinking behind this ambitious expansion?
Well, it's likely tied to their long-term growth strategy. They're anticipating continued growth in demand for infant and children's wear, particularly in emerging markets. And with this new facility, they'll be well-positioned to meet that demand.
Makes sense. If you want to be a global leader, you need the capacity to produce on a global scale. But these kinds of projects are expensive. How are they funding all of this?
Well, they secured a substantial term loan from a consortium of banks led by Axis Bank Limited. The total sanction amount is a whopping H2,023 crores.
Whoa, that's a lot of zeros.
Yes.
Shows they've got the financial backing to make their ambitious plans a reality. But expansion isn't their only strategy.
Right.
What else are they doing to ensure their future success?
They're also pursuing what we call a backward integration strategy, which is quite fascinating.
Okay, backward integration. That's a term that might need some unpacking. What does it mean in the context of Kitex's business?
Essentially, it means they're bringing more of their supply chain in-house. For example, they're setting up a new ginning facility.
Ginning, as in cotton gin, like the kind Eli Whitney invented way back when.
Precisely. This means they'll have complete control, from raw cotton to the finished garment.
Whoa, that's pretty impressive. So they're not just sourcing cotton anymore, they're processing it themselves.
Exactly. And this move gives them even greater control over quality, reduces their reliance on external suppliers, and potentially helps them manage costs more effectively.
So it's all about optimizing that supply chain for maximum efficiency and quality control.
Exactly. And it also aligns with their commitment to sustainability, which is another key aspect of their strategy.
Okay, let's talk sustainability. It's a
Yeah.
buzzword that gets thrown around a lot these days.
Yeah.
But how is Kitex actually walking the walk when it comes to environmentally responsible practices?
Well, they've already implemented several initiatives, including water recycling and energy reduction programs at their existing facilities, and they've set ambitious goals for 2025, aiming to integrate sustainable practices throughout their operations.
Okay, give us some specific examples of what they're doing to green their operations.
They're looking at ways to recycle cotton and fabric waste, minimizing their environmental impact. They're also investing in more energy-efficient machinery and exploring renewable energy sources. And they're incorporating sustainable practices into their supply chain, working with suppliers who share their commitment to environmental responsibility.
So they're not just focusing on their own operations, but also influencing their partners and suppliers.
Absolutely. And that's important because true sustainability requires a collaborative approach across the entire industry.
Okay, so we've got this picture of Kitex as this global giant, making big moves, expanding rapidly, and embracing sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
But behind every successful company are the people driving the vision, making it all happen.
Right.
Who are the key players behind the scenes at Kitex?
Well, at the helm, you've got Sabu M. Jacob, the chairman and managing director. He's a very passionate leader who's deeply committed to the company's mission and growth.
And he's the son of the company's founder, MC Jacob, right?
Yes.
The annual report mentions the founder instilling a principle of caring into the company's ethos.
That's right. And it seems that Sabu M. Jacob is carrying on that legacy.
Caring.
Yeah.
It's an interesting word to associate with a major garment manufacturer. How does that actually translate into their business practices?
It's evident in their commitment to employee well-being, for one. They provide training and development opportunities, they emphasize workplace safety, and they have initiatives to support work-life balance.
So they're not just talking the talk, they're actually walking the walk when it comes to treating their employees well.
It seems so, yes. They also go above and beyond in their community initiatives, demonstrating a genuine commitment to social responsibility.
Okay, what kind of community initiatives are we talking about here?
They're involved in a wide range of activities, from road construction and housing development to providing subsidized food and medical support to those in need. They're also supporting agricultural activities in their local community.
Wow, that's really impressive. Sounds like they're taking their role as a corporate citizen seriously.
They are indeed, and it's a refreshing approach to see, especially in an industry that's often criticized for its labor practices.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
We've explored the global economic context, the dynamics of India's textile industry, Kitex's unique business model, their impressive financial performance, and their commitment to sustainability in their employees.
Right.
But there's still so much more to uncover.
Absolutely. We've only just scratched the surface. Next, we'll delve into the details of their financial statements, analyze their key ratios, and explore the potential risks and challenges they might face in the years ahead.
Stay tuned, folks, because things are about to get really interesting.
Buckle up. Welcome back. Last time, we set the stage by exploring that global economic backdrop and the dynamics of India's textile industry. We also took a close look at Kitex Garments Ltd's unique business model, impressive performance, and commitment to sustainability.
Right. We saw how they managed to navigate those choppy waters of the global recession and emerge even stronger, thanks in part to their strategic expansion plans and that fascinating yarn-to-garments model.
Exactly. But now we're going to roll up our sleeves and get into the nitty-gritty of their financial performance by examining their financial statements. Think of these statements like a company's report card, providing a detailed look at their financial health and how they've managed their resources.
Okay, I'm ready to play financial detective. Where do we start with this report card?
Well, let's begin with the profit and loss statement, often called the P&L. This statement shows their revenues, expenses, and ultimately whether they made a profit or a loss. It's a snapshot of their financial performance over a specific period. In this case, the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2024.
Right, the P&L. It's all about the bottom line. So what does Kitex's P&L tell us about their performance?
It reveals a story of resilience and strategic success. Remember, we talked about their remarkable comeback in the second half of the year.
Yeah, they really bounced back from that somewhat sluggish first half.
Exactly. And that's reflected in their total revenue from operations, which reached H 61,692.20 lakhs.
Okay, another big number. Remind us again what a lakh represents. And maybe you can put that revenue figure into perspective for us.
Of course, 1 lakh is equivalent to 100,000. In this case, we're talking about Indian rupees. So to put that revenue figure in perspective, it translates to roughly 833 million US dollars.
Wow, that's a significant amount of revenue. And how does that compare to their performance in the previous year?
It's actually a 10% increase from the previous year, which is quite impressive considering the global economic headwinds they faced.
So despite the challenges, they managed to grow their top line.
Exactly. It's a testament to their strategic decisions and operational efficiency. But revenue is only one side of the coin. We also need to look at their expenses to get the full picture.
Right, because profit is all about what's left after you subtract those expenses from the revenue. So what were their expenses like during this fiscal year?
Well, their total expenses for the year amounted to H 54,251.09 lakhs, or roughly 733 million US dollars.
Okay, so they spent a lot, but they still made a profit, right?
Oh, absolutely. Their net profit after tax. The figure we often refer to as the bottom line was a healthy H 6,818.77 lakhs, or approximately 92 million US dollars.
That's a sizable chunk of change. Their P&L definitely tells a story of growth and profitability. But the P&L is just one piece of the financial puzzle.
Yeah.
What other statements should we be looking at to get a complete picture of their financial health?
Next, we should turn our attention to the balance sheet. This statement provides a snapshot of their assets, liabilities, and equity at a specific point in time, which in this case is the end of their fiscal year.
Okay, so if the P&L is like a video of their financial performance over time, the balance sheet is more like a still photo capturing their financial position at a specific moment.
Precisely. And this snapshot reveals a company with a very solid financial foundation.
Okay, walk me through it. What are their assets, liabilities, and equity looking like?
Their total assets at the end of the fiscal year stood at H 1,014,566.94 lakhs, while their total liabilities were H 18,266.49 lakhs.
Okay, let's pause there for a second. For those of us who aren't accountants, remind us what assets and liabilities actually represent.
Of course, assets are what a company owns, things like cash, inventory, property, and equipment. Liabilities, on the other hand, represent what a company owes to others, things like loans, accounts payable, and deferred revenue.
Got it. So Kitex has a lot more assets than liabilities, which sounds like a good thing.
Right. It is indeed. It indicates financial strength. And when we subtract their total liabilities from their total assets, we arrive at their equity, also known as their net worth, which is a whopping H 96,300.45 lakhs.
So basically, they own way more than they owe.
Exactly. This is a strong indication of financial stability and a positive sign for investors.
All right, so we have the P&L showing their profitability over time, and the balance sheet capturing their financial strength at a specific point in time. What's the last piece of this financial puzzle?
The cash flow statement. This statement tracks the movement of cash both in and out of the company over a given period. It's all about understanding where the money is coming from, where it's going, and how effectively they're managing their cash flow.
So it's like their financial GPS, showing the flow of money through their business.
That's a great analogy. And for Kitex, the key takeaway from their cash flow statement is their ability to generate cash from their core operations.
That sounds promising. Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. Their net cash generated from operating activities was H 24,183.79 lakhs in the previous fiscal year, although they did have negative cash flow in the most recent year. This is still a healthy number, indicating they're running a tight ship and efficiently converting their sales into cash.
And that cash is crucial for funding all those growth ambitions we talked about earlier.
Exactly. They need cash to invest in those new production facilities, upgrade their technology, and explore new market opportunities. A strong cash flow is essential for any company looking to grow and expand.
Okay, we've got these three key financial statements: the P&L, the balance sheet, and the cash flow statement. They've given us a good overview of Kitex's financial performance and health. But is there anything else we can glean from these statements? Any deeper insights we can extract?
Yes, we can delve into some key financial ratios, which provide a more nuanced understanding of their financial performance.
Ratios. Okay, I'm getting flashbacks to math class. But seriously, how can ratios help us understand a company's financial performance?
Financial ratios are like powerful tools that help us analyze and interpret the numbers in the financial statements. They can reveal trends, highlight strengths and weaknesses, and provide a basis for comparison with other companies in the same industry.
Okay, so they're like financial magnifying glasses, allowing us to see the finer details.
Exactly. And there are many different ratios we can look at. But let's focus on a few key ones that are particularly relevant to Kitex.
Sounds good. Which ratio should we start with?
Let's begin with the current ratio, which measures a company's ability to pay its short-term obligations using its short-term assets.
So it's a measure of their short-term liquidity, how easily they can cover their immediate bills and expenses.
Precisely. And Kitex boasts a very healthy current ratio, indicating they're in a strong position to meet their short-term financial commitments.
That's reassuring to hear. It means they're not likely to face any cash crunches in the near future. What other ratios are worth examining?
Well, the debt-to-equity ratio is often used to assess a company's financial leverage. But in Kitex's case, it's not applicable because they don't have any long-term debt.
No long-term debt. That's pretty remarkable, especially for a company that's undertaking such ambitious expansion projects.
It is indeed. It speaks to their prudent financial management and their ability to fund growth primarily through their own earnings and cash flow.
Okay, so what other ratios can we use to assess their financial performance?
We can look at their net profit margin, which tells us how much profit they generate for every rupee of revenue. It's a measure of their profitability and efficiency.
Okay. What's their profit margin looking like?
It's consistently strong, hovering around 10%. This means that for every H100 of revenue they generate, they're keeping H10 as profit.
So they're not just selling a lot, they're making a healthy profit on those sales.
Yeah.
That's a sign of a well-run business.
Absolutely. And lastly, we can examine their return on capital employed, or ROCE, which shows how effectively they're using their invested capital to generate profits.
Okay, give me the verdict on their ROCE. How efficiently are they using their capital?
Their ROCE consistently exceeds 9%, which again indicates they're making smart investments and generating solid returns for their investors.
All right, so far so good. Their financial statements and these key ratios paint a very positive picture.
Yes.
They're profitable, financially sound, and using their capital efficiently. But you mentioned potential risks earlier.
Yeah.
Are there any red flags buried in these numbers? Anything investors should be cautious about?
Well, no major red flags are waving frantically, but there are a few things to keep an eye on. For instance, they carry a substantial amount of inventory.
Inventory. You mean all those onesies and baby clothes stacked up in warehouses?
Exactly. While holding inventory is normal in the garment industry, especially for a company as large as Kitex, it does carry inherent risks.
Like what? What could go wrong with having too much inventory on hand?
Well, if fashion trends change quickly or demand slows down unexpectedly, they could find themselves with a lot of unsold merchandise.
Right.
And that can impact their profitability.
Right. Nobody wants a warehouse full of outdated baby clothes. So how do they mitigate this inventory risk?
They're very focused on forecasting and planning, trying to anticipate demand as accurately as possible. They're also constantly working to optimize their supply chain, making it more agile and responsive to shifts in the market.
So they're trying to stay ahead of the curve and avoid getting caught with their onesies down, so to speak.
Exactly. But there's another potential financial consideration we should discuss: contingent liabilities.
Contingent liabilities. That sounds a bit ominous. What exactly are we talking about here?
These are potential obligations that depend on uncertain future events. It's like a financial what-if scenario.
Can you give us a relatable example to help us understand this concept?
Sure. Imagine you slip and fall in a store, and you decide to sue the owner. The store owner now has a contingent liability because they might have to pay you damages, but it's not certain yet.
Right.
The outcome depends on the court's decision.
Okay, so it's like a financial cloud hanging over their heads. But it might rain or it might clear up.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And Kitex does have some contingent liabilities. One example is a claim against the company that's currently being disputed on appeal. It involves certain PF and ESI payments, and it could potentially result in a significant payout if the ruling doesn't go in their favor.
Okay, so it's something to keep an eye on, but not necessarily cause for panic at this point.
Exactly. It's just one of those financial what-ifs that investors should be aware of.
All right. So we've covered their financial statements, analyzed key ratios, and even explored some potential risks. What's the overall takeaway from all of this? What should investors be thinking about as they assess Kitex's financial picture?
Overall, their financials reveal a healthy and growing company with a solid track record of profitability, sound financial management, and a strong cash flow. They're clearly in a good position to continue pursuing their growth strategy.
That's good news for anyone with a stake in the company,
Yeah,
whether they're investors, employees, or even just parents buying those adorable onesies.
exactly. But we've only explored one side of the equation. To truly understand Kitex, we need to delve into the people behind these numbers, the individuals who are shaping the company's future.
Okay, let's meet the minds behind the onesies. Who are the key players driving Kitex's success, and what are their plans for the future?
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of Kitex Garments Ltd. We've explored their impressive financial performance, their unique business model, and their commitment to sustainability. But numbers only tell part of the story. Exactly behind every successful company is a team of talented individuals driving that vision and making it all happen. So in this final part, we're going to shine a spotlight on the people behind the scenes at Kitex, exploring their leadership, their experience, and their plans for the future.
Sounds good. Let's meet the minds behind those adorable onesies.
Well, we've already touched on a couple of key figures. Sabu M. Jacob, the chairman and managing director, and Sindhu Chandrasekaran, the executive director and assistant VP of finance.
Right, Mr. Jacob seems to be carrying on that legacy of caring leadership established by his father, the company's founder, and Mr. Chandrasekaran is apparently a whiz when it comes to managing the company's finances. What else can we glean about the team running the show?
Well, the annual report provides a very detailed breakdown of the entire board of directors, including their backgrounds, expertise, and committee memberships. It's like a who's who of Kitex's leadership.
So it's not just a one-man show. They've got a whole team of experienced individuals at the helm.
Absolutely, and it's a diverse group with members from various fields, including industrial management, technical expertise, and finance. This range of perspectives is invaluable for a company operating on a global scale like Kitex.
That makes sense. Having a variety of viewpoints at the table can only lead to better decision-making. But beyond just having diverse backgrounds, are there any standout details about these board members? Anything that particularly caught your eye?
Well, one individual who stood out was Mr. K.L.V. Narayan, a non-executive director who's been on the board since 2013.
Okay, so he's been around for a while, seen the company grow and evolve.
Yeah.
What's his story?
Interestingly, he's also an executive director at Scooby Day Garments, India Limited, another major player in the garment industry.
Huh.
This suggests that he brings a wealth of industry-specific knowledge and experience to the table.
So he's not just a financial expert. He understands the ins and outs of the garment business.
Exactly. And that kind of firsthand experience is incredibly valuable, especially for a company like Kitex that's constantly navigating the complexities of the global garment market.
Makes sense. Anyone else worth highlighting on this all-star board?
Yes, Mr. Benny Joseph, an independent director, chairs the Nomination and Remuneration Committee. The report highlights his financial and accounting expertise, as well as his experience in risk management.
So he plays a crucial role in shaping the company's leadership and making sure they're effectively managing potential risks.
Precisely, it sounds like they've assembled a truly well-rounded and experienced team to steer the ship.
They do. And it's not just about individual expertise. The board as a whole seems committed to good corporate governance. They've established various committees to ensure transparency, accountability, and responsible decision-making.
Yes, that's a key point. They have an audit committee, a nomination and remuneration committee, and a corporate social responsibility committee, all working diligently behind the scenes.
It's good to know they're ticking all the boxes when it comes to responsible corporate governance. But let's zoom out a bit. We've talked about the board, but who ultimately owns Kitex? What's the shareholder structure like?
The majority of shares are held by the promoters, which include Sabu M. Jacob and Kitex Children's Wear Limited.
So it's still very much a family-run business.
You could say that, yes, the Jacob family retains a significant controlling stake in the company, and it's worth noting that there haven't been any major changes in shareholder holdings during the past year. This suggests stability and continuity in terms of ownership and strategic direction.
Okay, so we've got a clear picture of the leadership, the board, and the shareholder structure. They've got a solid team in place, a commitment to good governance and stable ownership. But what about their vision for the future? What's next for Kitex?
Well, their annual report provides some tantalizing glimpses into their future strategies, as we've discussed. Expansion is a major focus. Those projects in Warangal and Siddharampur are poised to significantly boost their production capacity.
Right, they're preparing to meet that anticipated surge in demand for baby clothes.
Exactly. They're not just looking to expand their existing operations, they're also actively exploring new markets.
New markets. So they're thinking beyond just the U.S. and their current export destinations.
Absolutely. They're looking to diversify their geographic reach, potentially tapping into new consumer bases in other parts of the world.
Go.
This strategy can help mitigate risks associated with relying too heavily on any single market.
Makes sense. Spreading their wings geographically can make them more resilient to economic fluctuations in any one particular region. What else is on their strategic radar?
They're also exploring opportunities to diversify their product portfolio.
Interesting. So beyond just onesies and baby clothes, what else might they be considering?
They haven't revealed specific plans yet, but it's clear they're thinking beyond just traditional infant and children's wear.